Hello and welcome to Pandora Astrology's monthly horoscope for August of 2023. We are the astrologers of Pandora Astrology. I'm Jamie Kale Miller. I'm in Berkeley, California.
And I'm Julia Mijas, and I'm in San Francisco, California.
Let's take a look at what's happening this month for you. Well, hi there, Capricorn. Juno is starting the month in your relationship house, which is pretty terrific. She does love to be there. She is a goddess of committed relationships of all kinds, whether business or personal. And when she's passing along through the seventh house is a really good time to negotiate the terms of your relationship, to sit down and talk about where and how could things be more equitable and more fair? How can you have that feeling of alliance and partnership and the warm bonds that can go with it? And so Juno's passage through this house is a really great time for that, but only in the first half of the month, because just about halfway through the month, Juno moves on into Leo and your eighth house, which takes her into a realm that is still to do with relationship, but goes a lot deeper than everyday conversations might really want to explore. This is a house of sharing, and sharing takes three forms. It's physical, it's emotional, and it's financial. The physical form of sharing, of course, is sexual intimacy. The emotional form of sharing is emotional intimacy, which you can have, even with somebody that you're not sexually connected to, like a best friend or a therapist. And then the third form of sharing, the financial form, is investing. And that may mean being married to somebody and running joint finances. And it might be investments that you have, where you hope that your money will grow over time, like an IRA, stocks, bonds, things like that. This house covers taxes and insurance. So it covers a lot of stuff, which is really very emotionally charged. And when Juno is in the sign of Leo, you definitely want to have a feeling of mastery. And so when Juno enters into this house, and as long as she's here, which is going to be until mid-October, so all the way through next month, you might want to, bring yourself into some conversations with any partner that you have, to bring some of these topics up into the light of day and to really look at them and really research them together, and to ask yourself, how does this work now that we, our joint finances, how are they working? Are they going well? Are they benefiting both of us? Do we both feel like, this is pretty shiny, good stuff, or are we feeling like not seen? And sorting some of those things out while Juno is passing through this house would be really good to do. Next thing I want to talk about is Uranus, and he's traveling along through your fifth house. Now, Uranus is a change maker. He's kind of a rabble rouser, and he can bring quite a bit of agitation and some disruption as he wants to break up old patterns and bring new ideas to any realm that he's passing through. Uranus is a fairly slow-moving planet and generally spends about 7 years. He's been in your fifth house already for a couple of years and will be here for about 2 more. And this is the house. Now, this is a house that might easily be thought of as superficial, because this is a house of entertainment and fun and hobbies and play. It's a house of children, your relationship to children, if you have any, and the childlike side of yourself. But I think of this also as the house of your personal brand. And I think that because it opposes the 11th house, which is the house of community and networks of all kinds, which for many of us shows up in the form of social media and all the people that we know on the internet through whatever whatever medium that you might prefer. Now, the fifth house, being the opposite of that house, is the house of your brand on the internet and your personal brand in the communities that you're a part of, even if you're not on the internet at all. Like when you show up in a group, who are you as a person? And so having Uranus in this house might make you feel like you want to change that up. Like maybe you want to put on a funny hat and replace your profile picture on your social media accounts. Maybe it's time for a radical change in your personal brand and how you show that off to the world. Now, you might be wondering, if Uranus is taking 7 years to pass through this house, couldn't that shift have already happened? And why am I mentioning it now? Well, I'm mentioning it now because Uranus is going to go retrograde at the end of the month. And when Uranus goes retrograde, it begins the yearly backwards journey that can just really amp up the agitation and put you in mind of all the changes that you'd like to make. And it can make you feel really trapped by your social identity and like you just want to bust out of it and maybe burn it down and do something very different instead. So watch out for that towards the end of the month, and Uranus will continue retrograde for the rest of the year. And so that might be some, of an experiment or an exploration that you're engaged in, kind of in a background way. Now, Ceres is traveling along through your 10th house, and she's a really great one for stewardship. She's a very practical goddess, an earth mother, and she likes to cultivate wherever she goes. And she's traveling through your 10th house, and she might really have your mind on your money in your career and how your income is going and whether your income is building on itself and whether you're able to build wealth in the ways that you want to. And that might feel like work while Ceres is in the 10th house, because anything that's in the 10th house is going to feel like work while it's there. But this is work that's worth doing, and it's all about building value in your workplace. And along with that value and skill that you're building, a real sense of belief. I want to say belief, but I have to say like commitment to bringing value and to knowing that you do bring tremendous value, which may give you the ability to ask for more in the future. Hey, Julia, what is up with the inner planets for the Capricorns of the world this month?
Well, hey there, Capricorn. Let's talk about Venus, the planet that represents your relationship. She starts the month retrograde, which is pretty significant for all of us because Venus retrogrades are times of relationship review, and this is happening in your 8th house. This is a house of finance, the money you share with your partner. So with Venus retrograde in this house, you could be reviewing money in your relationship, how joint credit cards might work, because the 8th house is shared finances. Is one of you making more money than the other while the other is maybe depending? Or are there ways that you guys can both grow your shared finances and investments together? Who's paying the mortgage for the house, for example? These could be questions you're looking into. The 8th is also a very psychological house. So if you have been thinking about going to couples counseling together, you might be reviewing whether couples counseling could be a good avenue for you guys. And this is also a very sexual house. So you could also be reviewing sexual stuff in terms of how you guys connect together and whether there's some work to be done. Now, if you're single, you could be looking at all of these things in terms of what you want from your next relationship, sort of taking inventory from your past ones and thinking about what you would like to change for the future. Now, on August 13th, Venus conjoins the Sun while retrograde. We call that Relationship Clarity Day. So around mid-month, you could be having some insights in the midst of this big review period in your life. So definitely keep track of that time, because really good insights might be coming then that can help you move forward. Now, Mercury, the planet that represents your mind, starts the month in the 9th house. This is a house of travel and education, both things that Mercury likes very much. So your mind could be maybe on school, on learning new things, maybe travel. Now, Mercury will go retrograde by August 23rd. So this is kind of a challenging month for travel with that Mercury retrograde down the pike. You might find a lot of delays and travel snafus around the way, missed flights, for example. It could also be a frustrating time if you're learning new things, whether you're in school or doing some continuing education. You might have to go back over material that you thought you really grasped and that you really understood. And if you're involved in any legal disputes or legal affairs, expect to have to review them as well. Things might not just be so straightforward, and you might have to go back. Finally, Mars, the planet of action and activity, starts the month in your 9th house. So a lot of emphasis on your 9th house this month, Capricorn. And Mars in the 9th is very, very driven to learn new things, driven to have loud opinions, driven to go travel and expand one's horizons. So this can be a fabulous time for doing something athletic that's expansive, maybe adventurous, like trying rock climbing for the first time or going on a hike. This can mean that you run into some frustrations with legal affairs in your life, like maybe getting a ticket, for example, over a parked car. This can be a time where you might run into some conflicts over your beliefs, that maybe you're pushing your beliefs a bit too much on other people. So be aware of that. Then by the end of the month, on August 27th, Mars enters your 10th house. This is a house of career. This is a house of authority figures. So with Mars in the 10th, by the end of the month, this could be a time where you're very driven and you're working very, very hard in your career. Especially could be a good time if your career is physical or athletic in any way, like if you spend a lot of time on your feet, or you are, a gym instructor or something like that. It can be a very fruitful time in your career, but it can also be a time of running into conflict with authority figures. So those are essentially the people who tell you what to do in life, like your boss, like your parents, like your teacher. You might seem like you have a bit of a chip on your shoulder now that other people just kind of want to knock off at work. So those could be potential areas of frustration, but the best use of this transit is to get as much work as you can done.
Yeah, that Mars in the 10th house can be so good for moving towards goals quickly. And I was thinking, with both Mars and Mercury retrograde in Virgo in the 9th house earlier in the month, boy, there's nothing like that combination for being quite convinced you've got all the right answers.
Oh, that's so true.
Hopefully won't lead to any arguments. Hi, Jamie here. Horoscopes and moon videos are fun, but they're also really general. Did you know we run live workshops monthly and that you can get questions answered about your own chart there? This month's topic is how to get passion and commitment in one blissful package. In this workshop, you'll discover your 2 different types, for love and for marriage, and how to resolve them in a single, passionate, and committed relationship. If you haven't found lifelong love yet, you might want to consider attending this. This workshop is expressly for our Tier 2 Patreon subscribers. It's easy to sign up at the Patreon link in the description below. I'd love to see you there. Now let's get back to the video. Well, I want to tell you about this month's 3 moons, starting with the full moon in Aquarius, which lands right here in your 2nd house, Capricorn. Wherever the full moon is, we can feel a lot. We can really have a lot of feels. The moon is all about emotion. It's also about self-care. And so we may feel pulled to take care of ourselves in what area that the full moon happens in. This particular one, though, we're calling big egos disrupt group nourishment. And if you're trying to nourish yourself in the 2nd house with this moon, then you might be about trying to build bank and make money and build wealth, because that's what the 2nd house likes, is to feel more financially secure. And a full moon here can really deliver that. But there is a bit of a problem here with Jupiter squaring that moon and the sun in Leo. And so that could bring in a big personality, somebody who is pushing back against you and maybe wants to, grab a lot of attention for themselves or have it all their own way. So there might be conflicts like that ahead around this first moon. And fortunately, there's a lovely trine to Ceres, which should soften and mitigate those factors quite a bit. And then we have a second moon in the middle of the month, and it's a new moon in Leo happening on the 16th. That lands in your 8th house, which Julia's been talking about quite a bit. This, and I did too, this house of intimacy and shared finances and research and psychological depth and change is very full and populated here in the middle of the month. Now, this is a new moon, which means it's a good time for planting seeds. And Julie and I have both been telling you that you want to work on the deep, intimate aspects of your relationships and really examine them while Juno and Venus are here. And this new moon really suggests that there could be some wonderful seeds planted for the future. This moon, we're calling it mending rifts, not making them. There is a square to Uranus that I spoke of that could, make you feel pretty rebellious and like you want a big change regarding your personal brand. And then that can come up as a conflict under this new moon. But there's so much harmony, so many other harmonious connections during this moon, in terms of trines and sextiles to Chiron and the south and the north node and Vesta, that things should be able to be smoothed over pretty easily. And the results of your research, and as you go deep into these, ordinarily hidden pockets of life, I think you should be able to plant some pretty great seeds for the future there, actually. The third moon I want to tell you about is coming up on the 30th of the month, and it's full moon in Pisces. Now, this is the second full moon inside of a calendar month, which is called a blue moon. It doesn't have any astrological significance. It's just kind of fun. And so we see this full moon happening in your 3rd house of communication. And we're calling this moon pressure to establish boundaries. And it has a kind of an unusual and very difficult configuration called a yod in it. And if that perks up your ears and you want to know more about yods, because you've heard of them, or you've heard of quincunxes, or, you just know how stressful this can be, then you should definitely check out the video that we made about it, which is on the monthly forecast page at our website, pandoraastrology.com. But suffice it to say that this moon is under pressure to establish boundaries. And this lands for you in your house of communication. And so you may find, and this would certainly be exacerbated by that Mercury retrograde. That's never going to help when it comes to communications going awry. But this moon in the 3rd house might mean that you're struggling under this moon to communicate and to draw boundaries around your communication, and to not just kind of like let yourself be drained out or give yourself away too much under that very sensitive, very emotionally porous, and very yielding full moon in Pisces. So it's a really good thing that Saturn is there to help. And it wouldn't be surprising if you feel like your communication is up for some extreme analysis and over-examination by other people, and that you just gotta, pull a cloak around yourself and rethink what you just said. The last thing I want to talk about is the seasonal change, and that's when the sun changes signs. Now, the first part of the month, as I mentioned before, puts a lot of emphasis in your 8th house. And so lots of emphasis on the deeper, more intimate areas of life. And you may want to be looking at finances that you share with a partner, whether that's a business partner or a spouse. But when the sun moves on out into your 9th house, you'll see that this is where the new emphasis is. And the 9th house is such a wonderful, free and expanded place to be. It's an arena of growth. It can be very much about adventure. It's very philosophical. It's very playful and lighthearted. and big picture oriented. So when the sun arrives here, it's like you become a seeker for a month and you start to ask yourself the bigger questions of life, which, maybe ordinarily you've got your nose to the grindstone, Capricorn, and you're, working to build things, working very hard to build great things in your life. And that's wonderful. But this month, while the sun is passing through Virgo in your 9th house, is a time to really grow into the details. It's like you might spend a lot of your time on the trunk, but this is the time to really branch out, and it can feel wonderful. And part of it will be asking yourself, well, what am I doing in the world and what does it mean? Like, why do I do it? What's the reason behind it? How does it connect with the big picture of my life? And how can that meaning inspire me to continue? So this is a really great month, by which I mean a 30-day period starting around August 23rd for you to put some high quality attention on those big picture questions and to derive some wonderful inspiration during the season of Virgo.
Well, that's all for today. If you love Pandora Astrology's free and informative horoscopes, please do hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and share our horoscopes with your friends.
You can find out so much more about how this month's transits affect you in very personal timing in our monthly Patreon workshops. Find the link in the description below to get started. Enjoy your summer, and until next time, we'll see you around the cosmos.
Bye-bye.